Hi, fourth graders. So right now I'm going to be going over the journal pages on page 224 and 225 for lesson 6-13. So this page is called Making Lip Balm. Lip balm is another word for chapstick. So lip balm protects your lips from chapping. It can be made at home with the help from an adult. The ingredients below are for one batch. One batch fills 4 small tubes. So these ingredients make one batch, which equals 4 tubes, which is the picture shown here. So let's look at the ingredients. You need 4 teaspoons of beeswax, 4 teaspoons of shea butter, 3 teaspoons of almond oil, and 1/8 to 1 teaspoon of flavoring oil, depending, I guess, on what flavor you want your chapstick to be. Okay, so the directions say solve using drawings, words, and equations to represent the problem, which is what we did in our practice problems and in the math message. So it says Yasmin made 2 batches, so 2 batches of lemon lip balm. How many teaspoons of almond oil did she use? Okay, so we have to look at our ingredients. So she made 2 batches. So if one batch is 4 tubes, then 2 batches is 8 tubes. And she would need double the amount of almond oil. So if one batch needs 3 teaspoons, okay, so I'm going to do my drawing here. I'm just going to use circles for the teaspoons of almond oil. So if that's for one batch, she would need 2 of those. And if I counted those, I would get 6 teaspoons. So I have 2 groups of 3. Here's one group of 3, and here's one group of 3. If I was to write that as an addition equation, it would be 3 plus 3 equals 6, and a multiplication would be 2 times 3 equals 6. So number 1 was pretty easy because you're just multiplying and adding whole numbers. So the next one is a little bit trickier because they now have a fraction in there. So let's take a look. It says cinnamon flavoring oil is very strong. So only 1/8 of a teaspoon is used for a batch of lip balm. How many teaspoons of cinnamon flavor oil are needed for 5 batches? So right now, we know that 1/8 of a teaspoon is needed for 1 batch. So we need to figure out how much is needed for 5 batches. So I'm going to use fraction bars actually to help me because sometimes when I draw circles, they are not straight enough. So I'm actually going to use fraction bars. So I'm going to draw 8 rectangles. For some reason, this doesn't want to. All right, I'm going to take my shape tool off because it was not helping me here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're starting to get a little small. 5, 6, 7, and I think I can fit this last one. 8. Okay, now all of these need to be divided into eighths. Now you could have drawn circles if that's easier for you. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, I only needed 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. because they're only making 5 batches. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going to split these into eighths. The easiest way is splitting it into halves first, then fours, then eighths. So you're trying to get your pieces as even as possible. Now, if I were you, I would probably do this on a separate sheet of paper because, again, for some reason, EM does not like to give the students enough room on their math journals to draw pictures or to use their work. So I always like to tell my students to use a separate sheet of paper. So they only need 1/8 of a teaspoon for each batch. So here's 1/8, 1/8 for this batch, 1/8 for the third batch, 1/8 for the fourth batch, and 1/8 for the fifth batch. Now, if I added these together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would get 5/8 of a teaspoon because it shows 5 groups of 1/8. My addition equation would be 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 5/8. So 1/8 5 times. 5 times 1/8. Okay, let's go to problem number 3. It says Carter made 4 batches of marshmallow lip balm. Ooh, that sounds like something I would like. He used 1/2 teaspoon of marshmallow flavoring oil in each batch. How many teaspoons of marshmallow flavoring oil did he use? Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. For my pictures, he needs 4 batches. So I'm going to draw 4 fraction bars. And each of them, I'm going to cut in half, right? Because my denominator here is 2. And I know that he only needs half for each batch. Okay, so this is for batch 1, batch 2, batch 3, and batch 4. And each of these are 1/2. So if I added these all together, I know that 1/2 and 1/2 is a whole, and 1/2 and 1/2 is another whole. So he would need 1 plus 1 is 2 full teaspoons of marshmallow lip balm for his 4 batches. So he would need 4 groups of 1/2. So he would add 1/2 4 times. And if he did that, he would get 4 halves, which is equal to 2. And for multiplication, for multiplication, he would do 4 times 1/2 would give you 4 halves, which is equal to 2. All right, number 4. Julia made 24 tubes of cherry lip balm. She used 3/4 of a teaspoon of cherry flavoring oil in each batch. In all, how much cherry flavoring oil did Julia use? So we have to be careful here because they're telling you how many tubes. They're telling you how many tubes, but they're only telling you how much oil is in each batch. So you have to look over here. Remember, 1 batch equals 4 tubes. So if I did a chart over here, and if 1 batch has 4 tubes, how many batches would you need for 24 tubes? You would have to divide 24 divided by 4 is 6. So she's making 6 batches to get those 24 tubes. So now we know that she is making 6 batches So you have to be careful, and you can't get tricked with the wording of the word problems. That's why we tell you to go back and highlight the important information and read the problem a few times, because you might have done 24 times 3/4 when that's not the case. This is showing tubes, and we need to know how many batches. So that's why I did this little chart over here, and we figured out that she needs 6 batches of lip balm to make those 24 tubes. So now I'm going to split each tube in fourths, and I'm going to start by making a half so they're nice and even, because I know 4 is a multiple, 2 is, and 4 are multiples. 4 is a multiple of 2. And then I'm going to split that one side in half again, and one side in half again, and I should get 4 pretty close groups. And remember, each fraction bar represents one batch. One batch of lip balm. So batch 1, batch 2, and I like to over label my drawings, because I would like, if somebody picked this up and maybe didn't read the problem, they would understand why I'm doing these fraction bars, because they would know by me labeling them that each one stands for one batch of lip balm. So I like to label everything all the time. So for each batch of lip balm, in the problem it says she needs 3/4 of a tablespoon. So she needs 3/4 of every fraction bar. Now I can tell right away that we're definitely going to have a hole, because we only need 4/4 to make 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1 hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another hole, and I'm left with 1, 2. So I'm left with 4 holes and 2/4. So the answer is 4 2/4 teaspoons, or you can simplify and do 4 1/2, because 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. So between which 2 whole numbers does your answer lie? Well, my whole number is 4, so I know it's a little bit more than 4, because I have 4 in a fraction, but it's not quite yet to 5. I don't have another whole yet. So my answer is somewhere between 4 and 5. If I was to put this on a number line, it would be somewhere in between those 2 whole numbers. So I have 6 groups in words, so 6 groups of 3/8. And I would do, 3/4. And I would add 3/4 6 times. And I would get 18/4, which you have to turn to a mixed number, which is 4 2/4. And for multiplication, you would do 6 times 3/4, and you would get that 18/4. So you would get that improper fraction, and when you turned it to a mixed number, you would get 1 1/2, or 1 2/4. Okay, I want you guys to try this problem for number 5 on your own. In my next video, I go through the math boxes. If you got stuck on another one, on a problem in your math boxes, I would definitely go and check that one out.